Hello, everyone. I am really excited for today's episode. I am interviewing Dr. Everton Gooden, and I remember as a medical student, not a medical student, but as a resident, because that's when I was at U of T, like, seeing him as in, meetings and things like that with the Black Physicians Association, and he was already, a well-known surgeon then. So it's been quite a journey for me in medicine to be at the point where like I get to interview him. So I'm really excited about that. So I'm just going to join. Okay, hi Gloria, hi Deb, T Dean, Jumi, hello folks. Um, So yeah, I see BMSA is in the house. So yes, thank you for coming. It just turned 7. It wasn't quite 7, so we're waiting for Dr. Gun. There he is. Hello. I have to back up. My face looks so big. Um,
Hello, Dr. O.
Hello. Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for joining. So people are just logging in now, and I'm just so delighted to have you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do like proper formal intros and all of
Okay.
that. I see
Okay.
Deontay waving. Hello. We've got some Black Medical Student Association folks in the house already. So yes, welcome y'all. But let me do the proper formal intro. So, hello everyone. I'm Dr. O, and this is Health Caring Differently, where we have Instagram Lives every Tuesday from 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And I interview people who are different and doing their work differently, right? Which is what we need in medicine and healthcare now. We are coming to the end of the spring season, so please stay tuned. Where our last interview or my last interview will be on April 30th. So I'm glad that you're here. Please tell friends. But also this week, our newsletter will be released where we're giving information on diversity pathway programs, scholarships, and research opportunities. Now, my guest today is Dr. Everton Gooden. And he began his tenure as president and CEO of North York General Hospital on December 1st, 2023. Dr. Gooden has held several leadership roles, including serving as chair of the Medical Advisory Committee and chief of head and neck surgery and chair of the Governance and Inclusion Committee at North York General Hospital. Dr. Gooden is also an assistant professor in the Department of Otolaryngology, so head and neck surgery at U of T. And Dr. Gooden's passion for equity, diversity, and inclusion led him to champion the establishment of North York General Hospital's first Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion office. Welcome, Dr. Gooden.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining. So I was just saying, like, I logged in like a couple of minutes before you did, just saying, like, I remember being a resident in those early days of the Black Physicians Association. It was like, wow, Dr. Gooden's a surgeon. I don't even think I ever even like said hello. I was just like a little like PGY. I would have been PGY2 from a distance, but really, admiring your work and always hearing from like the other surgical residents and other folks how much you were, involved in mentorship and things like that, right? Like just really keen to support. I'm going to ask you what I pretty much ask my guests, but, given your role as a surgeon, and now as a president and CEO, how would you say that you are health caring differently?
I think our approach to life is based on our lived experience. And so, growing up in Toronto as a person of color, as a Black person, um, I experienced a lot of things that for me highlighted what I wanted to do differently if I was ever in a position of authority.
Mm-hmm.
And so I take that, towards whatever I do, whether it was practicing medicine or now in this new role. So it means valuing each and every individual as equals.
Hmm.
um, and making a conscious effort to learn about our differences, and to just basically not make assumptions. When I was growing up, lots of assumptions were made about me, so I make a point of not making assumptions, and although realizing that we're going to treat everyone equally, and I try to do that absolutely every day, but not everyone has equal opportunity or equal access. And so
Right?
on a
Yes.
day-to-day basis, yeah, I ask myself, what is it that I can do in this interaction, in the moment, to make a difference in this individual, and not make assumptions, and ask how I truly can help, and be more proactive.
Yes, no, I love that. And I mean, that's the challenge with equality versus equity, right? Equality, you treat everybody the same, but that's assuming everybody's starting from the same starting line, right? And has equal opportunity. But in fact, like not every group, and those of us who are coming from Black communities, we have not had the same opportunities. But it is a tricky space to navigate, right? Especially as a leader. But let's kind of go back because now you're like, again, like, capital L leader. But let's go back to like when you were a medical student, right? Because so many of our audience, hi Janelle, so many of our audience members are, oh hi Cheek, are thinking about their own challenges right now, either because they're pre-med or thinking about healthcare, or they are, we've got a lot of Black Medical Student Association
Mhm.
members who've joined. So, what were some of the challenges that you faced, and how, and more importantly, because they're going to be different than the challenges now, I think, but they're still going to be challenges. And how did you overcome them, like early on, if it was pre-medical or even early medicine days? Like, what was your experience and what were your approaches?
I think it goes back to the assumptions. And so for me, a lot of the challenges I faced were people making assumptions about who I was or who I wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that probably still happens today.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the starting point, you need to have confidence and believe in yourself, and believe that irrespective of all the obstacles around you, that if you are willing to put the effort and work hard, that anything is possible, anything is achievable. And so I think that helped me in the face of opposition, and when maybe there were some roadblocks, that what carried me through a lot of those was just a belief in myself. And so I think that's very important, to have the confidence, and the ability to advocate based on that confidence for yourself, and also to look around for advocates and people who are going to support you. And yes, that will be your family. And I was fortunate to have family that supported me. But also along the way, along my journey, I was very purposeful at trying to identify who were going to be my advocates. And some of
Mm-hmm.
those would have been people who look like me, but not all.
Mm-hmm.
Use them for support as best as I could.
Yes, of course. So it's about creating that village, right? And it's going
Mhm.
to be people who look like you, but also people who don't look, like us, who can be in our corner in a field that is, predominantly white and also historically so. So that when we come into the space, sometimes there are those types of challenges. I wonder in surgery, do you feel like there are more? Because we just that paper, I don't know if you're familiar with the paper that came out that was covered, that
Yeah,
in
right.
surgery, the underrepresentation is pretty significant, right? Of Black folks. So I can only imagine that journey for you. Do you think that's been a challenge, like in the operating room, or, like again, when you were a resident and trying to come into those spaces?
Absolutely, 100%. With that said, I think we've come a long way, but there is a culture. There's a culture within medicine, and then when you look at each of the different areas of medicine, they have their own unique culture. And I think traditionally, the culture of surgery was that of male dominance, and very little representation of ethnicities,
Hmm.
and very little representation of women. And the culture was one that they were unapologetic about that. And so that was difficult for sure. And so I think the result of what you see today is a consequence of that. Now, with that said, you, amongst many others, have been hard at work with the Faculty of Medicine at introducing things that we could do as a program, as a department, to begin to break down some of those barriers. And so when you look at the surgical program now, you look at otolaryngology, all of the surgical programs have a commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion. You're beginning to see more female representation, for example, more people of color, but we still have a very, very long way to go, no doubt.
Yeah, so progress is definitely
Mhm.
happening. I'm wondering because you talked about because like I'm all about like how we stay well in these situations, right? So like you said you have to have that kind of confidence in yourself. Did you have oh, we're seeing the hearts, so there's love,
Mhm.
Matt and Helen. Folks are sending us love. Thank you. Did you have uh an approach to kind of shaking it off? Do you know what I mean? Or finding your confidence again. Like you might get shook, but then you're like, no. Like, you know what I mean? Did you talk to yourself or did you call a friend? Like what was your way to like get back, especially I would think it as a surgeon, like get back in the zone. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
to achieve and to, like keep
Mhm.
going. Do you
Mhm.
have certain tips of how you do that?
All of the above. I think supports are incredibly important. So I had the support of my family, the support of my friends, for sure, and also just the just that burning desire to prove them wrong, right? And
Mm,
so, and that was partly related just to my personality, but that was also partly related to, the support of your friends who believed in you, and over time that improves your confidence, and then that sort of it's almost like a revolving door
mhm,
where
mm,
sort of feeds itself. But a lot of what I experienced when I was prior to medical school, in medical school, again, was just around stereotypes, racism, and all of that. And so I really wanted to prove people wrong. And so for me, that was a very powerful motivating force. So I never, at that time, especially in surgery, there is that code, that culture that I mentioned, that the value wasn't necessarily talking back in the
mm,
moment, right?
mhm,
It was
mhm.
actually proving them wrong based on your actions, and just succeeding at your task on a day-to-day basis. That to me, that was the ultimate way of getting back, is just being as good as you possibly can, so that even in the face of oppression, that they couldn't oppress you, you could sort of continue to move forward. So that was the way I took control, and just making sure that I always delivered more than 100%.
I see. So yes, so continuing to achieve, prove wrong, and just excellence.
Mhm.
I'm wondering about, so I mean that's that drive that probably has you where you are now as I mean, as far as I know, you're the first president and CEO of a major hospital in the Greater Toronto area who is a Black person, right? As far as I know. Am I incorrect?
Um, I think so. I think there may have been someone in London a number of years ago
As
that
GTA. I said
yes,
GTA.
GTA, correct, correct.
Yeah, yeah, no,
Yeah,
I know. So yes,
yeah,
there is
correct.
in
Mhm.
London. Shout out, her name is escaping me, but yes, shout outs because that's London was like breaking records there, and a
Yeah,
Black woman on top of that.
absolutely.
Um,
Hmm.
but in the GTA there was this glass ceiling, and I just want to know like so there's one thing to overcome those barriers, but then like how do you keep pushing or keep because you have to see it people say, right? You have to see it to be it, right? But we hadn't seen it, and you are now it. Like we're
Hmm.
seeing you, but there was no one before you in the GTA who was president and CEO of a hospital as a Black person. Now, personally, I'm just telling you me, okay? This is me.
Hmm.
If I was a surgeon, I'd be like, yes, right? And then on top of that, if I was a like black, like as a Black surgeon, I'd just walk around like, yes, I'm a surgeon, you're welcome, right? Like I would be done. I'd be like, I hit it, I did it. Yes, check mark, and I just go about like, my surgical excellence. But you like said, oh no, no. I want to go to like the next level. And so I'm curious about like what drives you. Is it a particular purpose? Is it a particular mission or religion? Like I don't know, but like what made you say I want to like lead a hospital. I want to play that role. I want to be that person.
I think for me it was just based again on my experiences. That if you were to have asked me even 5 years ago, whether I would be sitting and speaking to you in this capacity, I would have probably laughed out
Yeah.
loud.
Okay.
So, it was based on experiences and just a desire that I've always had to want to make a difference at a larger scale, but also at the same time doing something that fulfilled me. And so surgery and practicing medicine was extremely fulfilling. And I was able to certainly influence and impact people at an individual level. And that was great. And that was an absolute privilege to have an opportunity to do that. What I found for myself over the years, though, is that I just felt that I wanted to be able to have a bigger impact that would affect just a larger group of people rather than at the individual level. And so
Mm-hmm.
I didn't say at that time, gee, I want to be CEO. So I got involved in areas of the hospital that would have given me that ability to be able to influence at a little bit of a bigger scale. So you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned the chief of staff role, the president of Medical Staff Association, and then sitting on the hospital and the foundation board of governors that provided that opportunity. But that opportunity also provided exposure to a broader area of healthcare that I would never have had that exposure to. And at the same time, developed for me some skills that I would have had to develop to be able to do a role like this. And so as time went on, and I just continued to have that desire to expand and to be able to influence at a larger level. And then this role came up, and for lack of a better term, the stars aligned, and I just felt that it was an opportunity that if I really wanted to push for change, that it's much better to push for change at the boardroom and at the senior leadership table than elsewhere. And that's not to say that the incredibly important role of advocacy at the various levels wherever you are is not important. It absolutely is critically important. But you also need, I think, advocacy at the table. And I felt that the hard work that so many of my predecessors have done to make a path forward for you and me, that it would be, I guess, almost criminal that if an opportunity came up, that you wouldn't at least look at it seriously to see if it was something that you could take advantage of and make a difference at a larger scale. And so that was my path. It really wasn't planned. It was really just circumstances aligning with for me, and just being in a position now that I can sort of push the envelope even further and develop broader policies that affect a larger community, right? That North York General serves.
No, that's amazing. And I mean, I think you're driven by a sense of purpose. And what I say to, some of my mentees is like, because sometimes we have imposter syndrome, right? Like we feel
Mhm.
like, maybe I can't do this. And again, I can't imagine being like the first in the GTA to take on that type of role in a hospital. But um, it's like you have to have the voice of your purpose be louder than the voice of any type of imposter syndrome. Anything that's telling you that you can't do it or you don't belong here or any. I don't know if you even have those voices anymore, but we all early in our
You know,
career we can have those, but it's like if you're driven by purpose and you know that you have a role to play, hopefully that's louder and keeps you kind of going, right? And that's even though you didn't say purpose, I could tell that you know what I mean? You feel like you can make a difference. And that's why you've taken this on, which is amazing.
yeah. A colleague of mine and a friend said recently that, and I agree with this 100%, that the day where you don't have imposter syndrome is the day that you're retired. So to answer your question, I
Okay.
I absolutely have imposter syndrome, and I think that's normal. And so I would say to anyone who's listening that when you start a new role, yes, you're always going to question, am I worthy? Am I good enough? And the anxiety and the stress and all of that, that's normal, and that's normal. And you push through and work through it. But absolutely, I have that syndrome and still do to this day, and probably will never be rid of it. And when I look back at 23 years that I practice and all of these new roles that I was fortunate enough to have been involved with, the imposter syndrome was right there next to me. So I think it's normal.
Okay, okay. And I think I'm hoping folks heard that. It does kind of follow us through life, but it's about having like, the just overcoming it, like knowing it's there, and then you keep moving. Don't let it stop you. Now,
Absolutely. I think that's key. Not, not to let it stop you and
mm,
move ahead and to realize that you know questioning yourself, I think is just is a little bit healthy,
mhm,
to sort of allow you to sort of just to move forward. And I think, I don't think for me, I was never comfortable with just feeling that I was all that and that I had all of the skills. I think we all have opportunity for growth and learning, and in this role, I still feel exactly the same way as I did, 23 years ago. And I would suggest that, for everyone, that you just the way you sort of move forward.
yes, yes. So no, I love that. Now, okay, we're at
Mhm.
7:19. I have like a couple of questions, but I want to know, y'all are on the line, right? Like, again, we have like BMSA in the house. We have so many folks. I know I see a few pre-med names here. Do you folks have questions? This is the time. I don't know how
Questions?
often y'all get to talk to like CEO and Ting. So like, do you, or surgeon, right? Like we haven't had, I think you're our first, we have other surgeons coming in the fall, but you're our first surgeon for, and probably only surgeon for this season. So like, do you folks have questions about ENT or being a surgeon or what his day is like as CEO? Like, bring the questions. We're at 7:20. This is the time. This is the moment. So we welcome questions. Type them in, and we'll have them. I know people like to wait, but type them in. Type them in. Ask the questions. Let's talk
Bring
the
it on.
things. Yes. Okay. So while we're giving space for people to think about their questions for you, I'm kind of curious. So, first of all, are you still practicing surgery at the same time, or did you have to kind of put that on hold to really focus 100% on being president and CEO?
Yeah, I really had to put it on hold to focus
Mm,
100%. So it's very challenging, to do both roles well.
yeah,
And so, I made the decision that I would focus on, the administrative aspect of things, and then perhaps, look at ways that I would be able to give back clinically. I still very much intend on being involved in teaching and meeting medical students and being involved that way, but doing surgery would be just a little bit too challenging at this
that's what
point.
I thought. Okay.
Mhm.
No, I thought so, but you never know. Like I know, what is it? When Dr. Oz first started his show, he was still like doing neurosurgery or something. I was like, what? How is this? How is this safe? But I'm guessing it is. I don't want to get sued. Whatever. Like I'm guessing it was fine. Um, but then okay, do you want to tell us about like how what does a CEO do of a hospital? To be honest, like what does the CEO do? And then I see a question from Dadal, but let's go with like what does a CEO of a hospital do actually? Oh,
Well,
questions are coming. Okay.
yeah, the CEO is basically the executive in charge of the running of the entire organization. When it comes to allocating money to different parts of the hospital, when it comes to making sure that the quality of care that we provide in the hospital is, meets the standard. Basically, responsibility for all of the employees and what we call the credentialed staff. So that means physicians and dentists and midwives. So basically, I am responsible for the running of the organization, which is about 5,000 employees, and I report to a group we call the Board of Governors, which are a group of individuals, men and women, that, represent, that actually, sit on the board, but are from different organizations. They run banks, they run insurance companies, they run other businesses, and have a lot of business experience to oversee the operations of the hospital to make sure that it's being run, appropriately.
I see. Okay, okay. So that's good. So yes, it sounds like a lot of responsibility and
Mhm.
a lot of meetings. We've got some questions. I see
Okay.
y'all. So yeah, keep the questions coming. We're gonna go through the questions. So I welcome more questions, but we've got a few, so that's good. So Adal RD said, "Is there someone who has had a significant impact on your life and career, especially the decision to get into medicine?"
Boy, many, along the way. When I was young, for sure, I was fortunate enough. I had a distant cousin who was a surgeon, and although I wasn't super close with him at that time, you know, just as a distance, he was a role model, a surgeon. I just thought it was
Mm-hmm.
magical. So he was an inspiration for sure. And when I was in high school, I had to take a job in a hospital to help pay for my university. Right, my parents were immigrants.
Mm.
They worked at times several jobs,
From where?
and from
You said
Jamaica,
immigrants?
from Jamaica,
Okay.
from
Big
Jamaica.
up Jamaica. All
That's
right.
right. And so one of
Yeah.
the earlier jobs that I took was in the housekeeping department at the Toronto General Hospital.
Oh,
And so I was placed in the
wow.
operating room, and my first job ever. And so you can imagine this 17-year-old in the operating room and being able to peer through the windows, watching these surgeons at work. It was magical. And so that for me was hugely inspirational. And through that experience, I was able to meet a mentor who was a surgeon. And I was able to meet other mentors that sort of helped me along the way and inspired me even more.
Oh, wow. So you were like cleaning in the hospital
Cleaning,
and
picking up
and
garbage,
then
sweeping
oh
the
my God.
floors,
That has
and
to be a
and
like a
it
biopic. That's
but
amazing.
it was, when I think back to that time, boy, it was magical, right? It really,
Wow.
that was what lit the spark for me in a big way. And I was able to sort of shadow this individual at times in the OR. In fact, what happened was that I was peeking, it's a crazy story. I was watching through the window, and at the same time, talk about racism. I mentioned, experiencing racism before. One of the anesthesiologists came out and said, basically berated me and said, don't look through the windows. You're here to pick up the garbage and clean the floors and just do your job. And so this other surgeon essentially overheard that and then invited me into the operating room to watch over his shoulder. And for the 2.5 years or so that I worked in that role, whenever this particular individual was in the operating room, I could sort of walk in and watch. And you can imagine what the inspiration that was for a 17-year-old
Oh
boy
my
to be
goodness.
able to see that. And so for me, that's when the magic started.
That It's an amazing story. You need
Mhm.
to tell that story all the time. People are sending hearts. Like you were 17 years old cleaning in the
Cleaning.
operating room. Somebody says, you don't belong here. Just don't even look in the operating room. Do your job and take the garbage. And then this other surgeon says, no, come in. Like that's a
I'm
beautiful
in.
story. Like people are sending hearts like that.
Yeah,
Like I almost want to cry. Like at 17, that's huge. And that's how people can make a difference, right? Like, and then you become
absolutely.
CEO of a hospital. Like, oh my goodness, that's like,
Absolutely.
wow. Okay, thank you for sharing that story. We have a couple of other questions. What was the most important? So Tobbs TB said, "What was the most important thing you did to get you to where you are now?" So I'm guessing it's more like as a
Yeah.
leader now. Yeah. What do you think was the most important thing?
I think, I would say just being willing to experience new things because you don't know what you don't know. And
Mm-hmm.
in my experience, my first taste of some of the administrative aspects of medicine, so the running of the hospital, occurred very early in my career as a surgeon at North York General. I was asked, it was suggested that I take part in something called the Medical Staff Association, which I knew nothing about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I agreed because, again, that's just a curiosity. I was a very curious person. I agreed, and I figured, the worst thing can come out of it is that I don't enjoy it, and after a year, I sort of just move on. But that
Right.
medical staff association was an important part of the hospital, and still is in most hospitals. It is the representative for the physicians that then puts you on the board, the hospital board. And so
Mm-hmm.
I went on the medical staff association executive, and as a result of that, I was given a position on the hospital board of governors very early in my career, and that was another, basically it was a mini MBA for me, and I got to meet
Mm-hmm.
a number of different people from different organizations, different businesses, and so all of the things that I've done subsequent to that really has just been a willingness to say yes, I will try that because it goes
Mm-hmm.
back to my point. You don't know what you don't know, and so for me,
Yeah.
it was a very enjoyable experience that then opened up a lot of doors. So I don't think there's any one particular thing, but what I would say is keep a very open mind and be willing to try different things. Some of it you will like, some of it you won't, but all of the experience is going to be valuable.
Oh, I love that. And people were sending hearts. So thank you for sending love to Dr. Everton. Because yeah, that's it. It's taking that opportunity. These are great questions. We've got another one. If folks have more questions, Dr. Gooden can stay a couple more
Yep.
minutes. We've got one more question that I see. Leanne, so if anybody has any burning questions, you've got like 2 more minutes. But Leanne, 26 says, "Hi, Dr. Everton. My question is, what inspired you to choose ENT as your specialty?" Mm.
You know, I like the variability. So I knew when I went into medical school I wanted to do surgery. I like working with my
Okay.
hands, and I
Mm.
like variability. And the beauty of ENT, or head and neck surgery, it is really the only surgical specialty that you can operate essentially from the womb, or from very early on when some when a baby's born,
Mm.
right up until the end of life stages. So we do a lot of pediatrics, neonatal surgery, adult surgery. Not only that, we can do microvascular reconstructive surgery, so we can remove tumors from the head and neck and then use tissue from other parts of the body to reconstruct that defect. And we can do a lot of very specific microscopic work in the middle ear. So it had a wide variety of surgical techniques and a wide age variety, and that's what attracted me initially to it.
That's cool. I had a great ENT rotation. Shout out to like Dr. Black. She was my preceptor at McGill, and she was
Oh,
trying to recruit me. She was like, "Become an ENT surgeon." I love the clinic. The clinic is often, but I do not like the OR. So that was
Dr.
the other
Mindy
side.
Black. I know Mindy Black very well. I know Mindy Black very well. So it's a great specialty.
Yeah,
It really is
yeah,
a great
yeah.
specialty, great lifestyle,
It
and
is.
no regrets. So if
Yeah.
those of you who are in medicine, or want to pursue medicine, consider ENT. It's a great specialty.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it. And that's it, Dr.
Mindy
Mindy Black
Black.
from McGill. She was, yeah, great. And again, somebody who did not look like us, so, white Canadian woman who was like
Mhm.
really great champion for me. But the OR is not my home. But the clinic is.
Right.
But okay, we got another question from Dadal RD. What new and exciting things are you going to focus on? Oh, at North York General Hospital over the next few years.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow. That's a great question.
That's
I
a,
love that
yeah,
question. It really
heavyweight
is.
question.
Um, so what we're doing now is we are doing what we call a strategy. So all organizations do a strategy, which is essentially a roadmap. So if you don't have a roadmap, you don't know where you're going to head. So we're going to be focusing on our strategy to get some direction. But I can tell you that a big part of that will be what I call investing in people. Because people are our number one asset. We want to make sure that people feel valued, that there is equality, that there's opportunity for everyone, irrespective of what you look like, your skin color, your religion, your sexual orientation. We want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to feel supported and advance in the organization. And I think once you invest in people and they feel valued and they feel supported, you're investing in their development, their professional development, then all of the other things that we would measure as successful, so whatever that metric may be, quality of care, et cetera, that if you invest in people, which is your most important commodity, then everything else is easy. So the big focus for us will be investing in people, making sure that the hospital at all levels, not just at the front line, but at the management level, at the senior management level, at the board level, look like the community. So
Okay,
that's
okay.
right, more representation, and have representation from women. There's something called the 50-30 challenge, where we want 50% gender parity, and 30% visible minorities. And so that's going to be a focus for us for sure.
Fantastic. That is fantastic to know that that's the direction. I think you folks will be leading the way for the other hospitals. So we look forward to seeing that. I think we could probably take one more question. So I'm gonna like leave it open for one last question. In the meantime, I'm just gonna ask you something because and people are sending you love and hearts. I'm gonna ask you one thing. Is there a way? Because I'm guessing coming back to like being different, when you walk into the boardroom, you probably are one of the very few people who look like you.
Hmm.
Maybe not the only, I don't know, but one of the
Hmm.
few. And if not at the table right now, it's happened at many tables.
Yeah.
For some of the students here, when they walk into a classroom, it's the same thing. How do you process that feeling in the moment? Like when you walk through the door and you realize it's just you. who looks like you. What is your approach to that experience?
I think I don't feel it at this stage any different because I feel that I bring to the table the same value that everyone else who doesn't look like me. So,
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't always the case, right? But I think that comes with just believing in yourself and just having the confidence. And so I think you just need to tell yourself that you are bringing value around the table. And so you're not a guest, you belong there.
Yes.
And you can contribute just as well as everyone else around the table. And so, that's my attitude, and that's the approach that I take. That my presence is warranted, and I'm going to bring value. And
I
so,
love it.
and
Yeah.
yeah, so I think when you're in those clinical situations and you walk into a room and into a situation where you are the only person of color, let's say, that's okay. You still bring the same value as everyone else around the table, and the merits that got you there is exactly the same, in many cases probably more than people around the table. So you've earned the seat, and the seat is yours, and you should take it.
Take it. I love that. I don't think we have like any more questions. I'm going to ask you, I lied when I said I had one more. I have one
Yeah.
last question.
Mhm.
Because you're a leader, so it's something that I don't usually ask the others, but healthcare is in a really like tough space post-pandemic. But what gives you hope when you think about the future of healthcare?
It goes back to the people. The people in healthcare are incredibly passionate, dedicated, and caring. And if you think of all of the challenges that healthcare has faced over the past 10 years,
Mhm.
particularly during the pandemic, think of all that was thrown at the healthcare environment. And what was it that carried the system through? It was the dedication of the people. And so that is what gives me hope that irrespective of whatever comes our way, that there is a resolve in the system and in the individuals who work in the system to make things better, to look for opportunities, to fight for equality, for representation, and that's what gives me incredible hope. And that's one of the reasons why I took this role at North York General. So it's the people. It's the people like you. It's the people like Dr. O, who is hosting this call, that gives me hope, and why I'm absolutely certain that as long as we invest in those individuals, that the future will be brighter for all of us.
I love that. I wanted to end on that because that was my last question, but I just realized that there's actually a question
Sure.
button
Mhm.
within this, and we have two more questions
Sure. Good.
from
Let's go.
students. I'm so
That's
sorry.
okay.
That's the first time I've just noticed it was like this red thing flashing. And I was like, maybe I should press this red thing. And then I'm like, oh, there's more questions. Sorry. So, but I love what you said, and I was going to end on that. But I have to be true to the fact that,
Yeah.
as you said, the
The
people
people.
have more questions for you.
100%.
Okay. So we've got there's a person called Question from Stories, and one question was, how can we better bridge the lack of trust that minority communities have in the medical system? So that's one of the two extra questions we have. There's another one after that, but how do you think we can bridge that when we think about patient populations?
Well, it's about relationship and education. I think organizations, providers, people just need to be proactive about learning about the communities that they are serving, um, not in a passive way, but in a proactive way. Go to where the people are, ask them questions, get feedback, follow through on what you say you're going to do. So do what you say,
Mm-hmm.
and over time, I think you will build trust. It's about education and being proactive.
And what the last question in this question, I wonder how many of these I missed with every Instagram live. Like it's a button that I just realized. Anyways, one of the questions from Montoyami is how do you deal with resistance from the healthcare system when wanting to make changes that are seen as radical? And I don't know if as a CEO you can make radical changes, I don't know, but at least significantly different, you know what I mean? To deviate from status quo.
Yeah,
Um, yeah,
yeah,
how are you
yeah.
able to do that?
So, I mean, it's a very good question. And at a high level, we identify where we want to go, and then we break it down into increments. And so, what are the five things that are critical in achieving our goals? And we start with number one. And usually, number one starts around education, right?
Mm,
It's around educating people so they understand the rationale for the change.
mm-hmm.
Through that education process, then you typically can identify those who are supportive or advocates. And so you take the advocates along and you then begin to implement that. And it's remarkable what happens when you do that because as time goes on, you get more advocates and it tends to grow. And the naysayers eventually become the minority and eventually join on. So it's incremental. I don't think, especially in healthcare, where there's um, so many factors that you need to consider. You do really need to break it down into smaller steps, celebrate your successes along the way, but
Yes.
again, have a focus and you know where you want to go, and these are the steps that's required.
No, I love that. Having the education and then identifying the people who are with you, like you kind of find your tribe within that particular issue, the advocates, and then keep, because I think sometimes we get jammed up arguing with the people who don't agree and we want to convince them. But early on, maybe that's not the just roll with who's with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So that
yeah.
is phenomenal advice.
Mhm.
Thank
And I
you.
would say as well that even those individuals who may not agree with you, that you, in a lot of cases, and not in fact probably most cases, there's usually an underlying fear, and that process of education and dialogue with them often alleviates some of their concerns and some of their fears. It's usually misinformation. So
Mm.
education actually is quite powerful, even in those individuals who you may feel is not supportive of the direction you want to get in, you want to go. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. And also, people need time, especially
Yeah.
if it's very different from their worldview or how they saw things. So, well, thank you for being an agent of change. Thank you for being like that shining star that we can look to and know that it is possible, right? If you see it, you can be it. So, who knows what the future holds now for future hospital CEOs and presidents? And people are sending hearts. So, just please know that you are
Thank
very
you. Thank
inspirational.
you. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. But it's just this means a lot for folks to see it, like for us to just see it and know that it is possible. So thank you for all that you're doing every day in the work that you're doing and the change that you're making. So again, I will. So now we're gonna conclude. I'll just remind you, folks, please do share health caring differently with your friends and family. This video is recorded, so you'll be able to find it later and share it. Our newsletter is going to be coming out later this week with different application pathways information and a few summer jobs and opportunities for Black, Indigenous students and folks of color and other minoritized
Great.
groups. So please stay tuned for the newsletter. So that's coming out. And next week, my guest will be Dr. Leah Jones, who's the Black Health Director at Dalhousie University. So please tune in for that. Dr. Everton, any closing words?
Believe in yourself. Anything is possible. I guarantee that if you believe in yourself and you commit and work hard, that you can achieve whatever you want to achieve. Absolutely. I'm a living proof of that. 100%, right? 100%. So just work hard and believe in yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you so, so much. Good night,
Right.
everyone. Thank you for tuning in.
Good night.
Bye.